And hello, hopefully we are live and recording for the Viva Explorers. So I'm Kevin McDonnell, I'm the Viva Transformer. And we have here Stale Hansen, if you want to say hello.
Good day, my name is Stale Hansen, I'm the Viva Empath.
And today we thought, well, we've been plotting trying to get our OKRs, our objective key results for the Viva Explorers to kind of give us a direction and how we measure success. And we thought rather than just sit there and do it as a meeting and then share it with everyone afterwards, let's take you through that process because I think it fits on Viva goals, fits with our sharing the why, the what, and the how of Microsoft Viva. So, yeah, Stoller, do you want to give us a kickoff a little bit about what OKRs and why we're actually planning to do OKRs for the Viva Explorers?
Absolutely, and I think it's good when you're starting with OKRs that the ones you are sharing this with and talking with this about, you have a shared understanding of what OKRs are and what you're trying to accomplish with them. So I just want to do a fly-in before we start defining our OKRs, and we'll see how far we get today then.
Fantastic.
So I
Just
will.
a very quick one for anyone who's listening live. You should be able to put comments onto this, and we will see those. So do feel free if you've got any questions, any thoughts, to post them in the comments, and we'll try and answer them as we go along.
Fantastic. I will share my screen now.
And for anyone who's watching this afterwards, do also feel free to put in the comments, but we might not be able to speak to it quite so much. So yeah, do add those and we'll come back to you in the comments as well.
Yep, absolutely. And so we have this Viva Explorers community, and we are over 70 people, which is in this loosely connected community. And we got together because we realized that employee experience together with Microsoft Viva, you have all these different angles to come into the platform. For some of us are technical, some of us are communicators, others are time boxers, others are trying to cheer people on to adopt the platform in a good way, and so on and so forth. So my avatar, because that's what we try to do for each of us, like what do we identify as?
And
So
we
my
should
avatar,
thank Moretta Stava for those incredible avatars she's created for us.
absolutely. So I'm the one with the tomato. And these are fantastic illustrations, as you said. And why do I have a tomato? Yeah, I'm a Viva empath. So the most empathic thing as a leader that I can think of to do is to teach people time boxing, to plan their time, to work in a smart way in Microsoft 365. So what is your avatar, Kevin?
So I am the yellow transformer over on the right there, and the reason is because a lot of people hear Viva and maybe they've got the licenses, and as with all technology, you turn it on and it just works. You don't need to talk to people. Now, those in the know knows that's complete rubbish. It is how you transform what people do with that technology, the adoption and change, getting it out to people, helping them understand why it's being used, what the purpose is, and how to use it as well. Build it into those habits. I'm a big fan of the book Atomic Habits, building these tools like Viva Insights into the habits and actually Viva Goals. So building that ongoing view of your objectives, what you're trying to achieve as an individual, how that aligns to the whole organization, and doing that on a regular cadence, not the old traditional, let's look at our objectives every 12 months and suddenly realize you haven't done any of them and panic about 2 weeks before you have that meeting. That's not what the objective of OKRs, ironically, is. It's to get that ongoing cadence. And that's something we're hoping to do with the Viva Explorers as well.
Absolutely. So it's a group you can engage if you have a user group and you want someone to talk about Microsoft Viva. You have a conference. You have you don't just want
Just
to
a
look up. Okay,
question.
what can we do with Viva? Do you have a question?
No. I was saying, or if you just have a question, then
Or if
reach
you have
out
a
to one
question,
of us, and either each of us will be able to answer, or we'll know someone who can. Definitely.
Absolutely. Okay. So our goal here is not to spend 40 minutes, but we could do that to talk about both the Viva Explorers and the OKRs. But I do want to highlight this book, OKRs for All. And it's written by Vetri Velor, and he is the program manager for Viva Goals at Microsoft, and was the founder of Ally.io, which was the product Microsoft bought for this. And he says that OKRs are for all, and that's the point. It's not for management. It's not just
Mm.
for upper leadership. It's for everyone within the organization, for everyone to understand their purpose of the organization and their purpose in the organization. And there's a very good story here as well, Kevin, which you have practiced on. Maybe you can do a short version of that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can imagine, I've talked about this conference one. I'm going to go for the original that Vetri talks about in this book, and I've heard a few times on there. But you can imagine you're walking up and you're seeing a man there who's building a brick wall. And they say to him, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm laying bricks." Kind of nod nicely and think, well, that's keeping them busy. You then speak to the next person who's also doing the same thing of laying bricks. And you say to him, what are you up to there? And he says, "I'm building a wall." He can see that it's not just that individual step of putting down cement, laying those bricks, making sure they're nice and level from there. He knows the purpose of doing that is to build up a wall and take it further from there. So he then goes on to the next person who also looks like they're building bricks and says, "What is it you're doing there?" And he says, "I'm building a cathedral." And there they can see that vision of, yes, there is that individual process of what they're doing, of putting that brick one step at a time. But the purpose for that is to build this big building that's available for everyone to use and fits into that wider vision of things. And that's really where OKRs come into it, into that alignment. It helps you understand what you're doing and what you're meant to be doing, that gives you that focus towards that larger objective. I think it fits with the story as well. Was it Robert Kennedy, I think, who was going around NASA and saw someone sweeping, said, "Oh, do you enjoy your job?" And he said, "Yes, I'm helping put a man on the moon." And this was someone who was there cleaning the offices, but they realized that everything that is happening in NASA is there to get to that common goal. It gives that common alignment to people. And that's one of the important things for these OKRs.
Absolutely. And I think it's just important to note that OKRs is not something Microsoft invented,
Mm,
or it's not a product. It's a framework for defining your objectives and key results
absolutely.
and initiatives. And it's been here for many, many years already. In the context of Microsoft, we are talking about it in terms of like Viva Goals, and which is an OKR tool which integrates with Microsoft 365.
Absolutely.
So when we are to define OKRs for Viva Explorers, I think it's very good that you and me, Kevin, and those listening and moving forward as well, as we involve more and more people to define the goals for the Viva Explorers, that we have like a common understanding of what it is. So I just want to talk shortly about like what it looks like. So you have an objective. So this is an objective. This is the icon as well. And one objective is a example I tend to use. Like maybe you would have wanted to become ISO 27001 certified, to make sure that we adhere to some security and management best practices. And then we have a key result. For instance, all employees must complete cybersecurity training. That could be a key result, which leads to becoming ISO certified. And then, of course, a project or a key initiative would be then to do internal cybersecurity training. Do you agree with this kind of goals, Kevin?
Absolutely, and I love that you've given that example of including the initiative as well, because it's clear you've got that key result, which is the measure, and you're very specific there. It's all employees, what they must do, but then you've got that initiative or or project, which is how that's going to be done. So you can track those tasks and track the things being done. But I've seen a lot of organisations say their projects are their key result. I'm going to deliver this project, but to me, for the most part, there should be two different things. The project is there to achieve a measure, in this case, to get that cybersecurity training that will allow you to become ISO 2701 certified. Really must be better at saying that. But it's tracking those two different things. Your key result shouldn't just be delivering that project. Your project should deliver a result that you can measure as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So when we define then an OKR, so this is kind of the formula for OKRs. We will, which is the objective measured by key results, which is then, as you said, Kevin, the project is what drives the key result. That's the activity we do in order to do that, and that's also something we can measure. And this is what we need to think about also when we define our goals. If we look then into this, and in terms of Viva goals, I think it's very important, as you said, that we can measure this, and also that we can measure it with an integrated tool. So we don't have to report on the report that we are creating for the day we are needing to report it, and then we need to update the report for the report with the PowerPoint which has the report. So what if you can then integrate the planner, for instance, right? We have a planner for launching that cybersecurity training. We have something we have completed here, and something we have left to do, and that drives then the status of this key initiative. We see we are 71% complete with that. Which means that it will automatically get updated based on your activity you maybe already measuring or doing or running, which means that it doesn't have to be a tool outside everything you do. It's more integrated to what you do.
And I think it means it's integrated to your flow of work. So as you're updating things, it keeps, as I was talking about earlier, it's that constant update to things. It doesn't mean you have to sit and kind of do a load of calculations, pull some numbers here, pull some numbers there. It's built into what you're doing and driving that already. And it means it's harder to hide as well. My previous organizations were putting in OKRs and they were set manually. It kind of gave you the opportunity to look at the numbers and interpret those and change them, which kind of goes against the point of the OKRs. The point is to say, this is what I'm doing. And if there's a bad story to tell there, you add the commentary around it to explain it, not just hide it away. And so I think it's very powerful to bring this connection into the real things that are happening there.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point, because OKRs, if you succeed with everything, you're doing it wrong.
Yes,
because
that's a really good point.
Yeah, it's a stretch goal. It's not something you will reach within 1 month of setting the goal. So then that's also a feedback. If you are not succeeding with it, that's good feedback, because then we can tune it. But if you're succeeding with it too soon, then it's also feedback, and we didn't set any good goals, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to touch on the other one is Excel. So we note we say that we monitor who are certified through Excel online, and that can also be a thing. So you can set then what kind of metrics you have and so on. And the third one is Power BI today, and I think Power BI then is more realistic then. Yeah, much better. So instead of using this Excel, use the Power BI instead.
So I'm used to podcasts where I can make a face and then comment about it afterwards and people not notice. But you're probably watching on video and saw my reaction to Excel. The reason is because you can break Excel. You can put all sorts of things, and it's very easy to lose the things there. So I don't downplay Excel. I think it's a very powerful tool to play in this, but I see it as a temporary tool, and that actually next you should be looking to get it into Power BI, into SQL, into one of the other tools that are defining that can't be massaged quite so easily. So it can get you moving quickly. And I think the example you've got here of who's certified is a lovely example, because you could get that. Or even where, I know like Microsoft certifications, you can export from a tool. And have that show up in there. That's a very nice way to bring it through as well. So I love that Excel's there. I would really ask people not to embed everything into the Excel, because you're going to just see pain later when it changes.
Yeah,
Do
at
you
the
see
same time, though, it's a very realistic approach
it is?
because
Yeah,
too many processes today are run through Excel.
absolutely. Yeah,
You would be surprised how many processes. But it's something easy to get started with while you wait for that awesome SQL or Power BI or what
yeah.
it is.
That will take a bit more time, so it gives you a way to get moving. We just had a comment appear saying Microsoft lists. Yeah, let's move on. No, joking aside, no, there isn't a direct link in with Microsoft's lists. I think it's
At the
fair to
moment, right?
say, well, I think it's fair to say without giving away too much that it is a Microsoft product, so Microsoft are going to be looking at that and seeing the details there. So I think there will be something there. If you see an absolute case where you need it, go to Microsoft. As an interim, as Stella mentioned there, that you have Power BI. So you can use Power BI to connect to the lists, and then you can connect to that Power BI instance from
Yes.
there. So this is where I've been so happy to see the Power BI capabilities, because it suddenly opens it up to a lot more things that you can make formal. I
Yeah.
do have a
And then the
post
sources
hopefully
could be
coming
whatever,
soon.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a post hopefully coming out soon on KPIs versus OKRs and
Mm.
specifically the key results. So there's a they're not exactly the same thing. I won't preempt a lot of what's on there, but thinking about those is really important.
Yep.
And hi,
And
John.
and
Thank you
and
for the comment.
maybe Kevin, you want to do you have like a short explanation of KPIs versus OKRs? Do you want to go down that route?
No, is the
That
short answer. Oh, I
it
think
is
very
it's a very
quickly.
common question though, right? Because
Yeah,
it's
it is,
very
and it needs a longer answer. Really, I suppose as a very quick one, your KPIs measure your whole organization. They track everything. They will give you a kind of a dashboard of what's happening. OKRs should be focused. They should be what you're trying to push ahead with. So they shouldn't measure absolutely everything. So some of your KPIs may feed into those KPRs. It's not there's a complete segregation, but you shouldn't be tracking everything across there. And what I've seen some organizations that work well is you have that regular cadence of reviewing your OKRs. If you're seeing a KPI that's going against what you want, that's when you make it an OKR and you come up with a set of things, kind of aligned OKRs and initiatives on how you're going to resolve that. And that's your OKRs. It's not just the KPI is measuring things. What you do about it and what you focus on is the OKR. And it's really important. I keep saying focus because you can't do everything. You have a limited number of resources. You have a limited amount of kind of mental bandwidth, even from every layer. You should be getting everyone aligned to solving one thing, not going, we've got all these problems, go and solve everything, and then expecting it to happen. The OKR is from that top level of the organization to say, this is what we want to focus on now. Yep, we could be doing those things, measure those as KPI. We'll keep an eye on them in case things get work, but this is what we want you to do right now.
yes. And also KPIs are measuring the status quo and making sure we're staying there as well. So if you're
Yeah,
dropping below, we need to adjust so we get there again.
yeah.
And one example I think is used within the book is that the website speed or something like that. So
Mm.
making sure the website stays within this speed that it loads this fast. That's a KPI that we are working on. And if you fall below, then we need to speed do more with it and so on. So this is automatically updated, which is great, and you can also sync if you've done some updates, which is also good.
Just talking KPIs, we promised we were going to keep relatively quick on that, and we're
Yes.
failing miserably on that
Yeah, we
KPI.
are.
And probably I'd say it's an OKR, but we haven't defined the OKRs yet, so we need to get to that.
Yes. Um, and so what you are seeing here is that the OKR or the objective, which this is automatically updated then by the two key result and the key initiative. And that is what you're seeing here in Viva Goals, is that it gets updated by the sub activities. So automatically via rollup from children is what this means, which is this. I think this is the essence of why you want to have an integrated tool to measure OKRs, and why Viva Goals could be an alternative for that. And it's easy to share in teams as well. It's like, we are on track. This is the goal, and people can go and view. I think that's
Yeah.
also very
It's got that
important.
transparency to everyone to see where your things are going, and people having that awareness of how things are looking.
Yeah. So you just go and share Viva goals, and then you find your OKR or key result or key initiative, and then you share it easily. You don't have to like write a long post about it.
Absolutely.
So this is what it looks like. And this is what I wanted to end up at before we start looking at Viva Explorers. So this is like the pyramid of what's important for an organization, and where objectives, key results, and key initiatives fits in within the organization. So it's right. Objectives are right there up with interpreting mission, values and culture, and strategic priorities, which is what we need to convert into objectives.
Yeah, I've always had a slight issue with this in terms of knowing organizations. Not everything that takes place is a project. So there's a certain amount I feel missing from this of what used to be called BAU, business as usual. You've got your support, your ongoing management of things. That would be something I'd love to see slide into this at some point as well. But otherwise, yeah, really like this slide.
I would rather say that projects then are key initiatives, because
Yeah,
it doesn't have to
yeah.
be a project, right?
Yes, yeah, no, I agree, and it's fitting those things in. I think that's there's always things that have to be done, data in the same way that you have KPIs. You'll have day-to-day activities as well that should be tracked. Should they be prioritized alongside projects? Yes. Not every support issue has to be the most important thing all the time. Then there needs to be some prioritization of that, and that's what the OKRs help to give as well.
Yep. And so the goal here is, every time we are doing an activity as Viva Explorers, and if you're figuring, hey, we should do something new, or we should do this, and that, if you have clearly defined objectives and key results, and then we should ask ourselves, is it helping us reach those key results and OKRs or objectives? Then yes,
Yeah,
let's go all in. But if it's like, oh yeah, it's actually way outside of our key results and objectives, then maybe we should just leave it as a good suggestion, and then include it the next time we want to adjust our course, so that we
yeah,
don't do, because you can have very engaged and very passionate and incredibly productive people in your group, but if they're all over here, then you're not achieving anything.
yeah. They're all pulling in
And
different directions.
yeah, and that's why, like, okay, yes, I want to do this, but it doesn't drive us forward. Then let me refocus over here, so that what I'm doing is actually bringing us forward, and that's what we want to
It
achieve, so
sounds like
that
you're
everyone pulls
describing
in
the
the same
Viva
direction.
Explorers. It
Yeah.
sounds like you're describing the Viva Explorers there. Lots of passionate people who want to get things done, but not always in the same direction. I think that's one of the things I'm very keen on this, that we get a direction that we're looking at, so we can always we've got a basis to question, why should we do that? Is that against our main goal? And we can kind of go, yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. This is why we're doing it, and it fits there. Or no, it's not. And then I think you touched on it there. Then we've got the opportunity to either say, don't do it, or is our goal right? Should we change that direction a bit? But it should be an active conversation and consideration, not just doing it from there.
Yes. And what if then we get everyone to pull in the same direction? That would be fantastic. So yeah, I don't know how much time we spent on this. Probably too long. But let's
More than the
dive
5 minutes we thought.
into. I have one other thought though. So when starting with the OKRs, I think we should look at the mission statement and the strategy.
Yeah.
But we should also look at, what are we measuring, or what are we trying to accomplish today? What kind of key initiatives do we have that we haven't connected to anything? Because I think that's very easy to get started with as well, and trying to either connect those or create objectives that make sense for what we're trying to accomplish. Because I think we have both for Viva Explorers as well. We have some like key initiatives, but we also have some a mission statement and a strategy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that top down, bottom up is really important from there. And that's how with organizations it happens. You define that vision from the top, what you're looking to achieve, which leads to a set of objectives, and that can be communicated, but then it doesn't need to just cascade down. I'm sure for those who've worked at large organizations, try and get that message to people, get it understood by the kind of each department lead, and then those departments go into their leads, and then it going down to the teams, and then it going down to the poor soul who gets all the work done from there. Actually, it's start from the top, let everyone know that, and then everyone can start to build their own and align that there. So top down, bottom up is absolutely the focus there.
Yeah,
So
and then if you
picking,
succeed with this, 96, not 100%, but 96% will understand what we're doing.
absolutely, there's always going to be awkward people out there.
Yeah,
We love them as well.
yeah, we do.
So taking from that top down and that vision, what I love is that we do have a vision for the Viva Explorers. I know this is one of the early things we did look to do and put together. There is to say the statement was so. I kind of got a high level, nice, easy one that trips off the top of the tongue and is easy to remember, of bringing the what, the why, and the how of Microsoft Viva. I often try and start that with the why. I must change that around on here. Start with why Viva. But our real vision is that people are the heart and soul of every digitalization project. Viva Explorers are passionate, and we draw on our diverse origins to influence a serendipitous, employee-centric technology movement, enabling a modern, empathic, enthusiastic workforce mindset on there. So that's why I can never remember that one when people ask who we are, and we have to put it front and center on our website to bring that through. So organizations, I think Stoller, could you name Microsoft's top vision?
Yes.
Dropping you on the spot.
It is to empower everyone in the world or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, to do more. So, and I love that. It's nice, easy to remember, and gives a very clear goal. Their one's pretty broad, of achieving, of getting more for everyone on there. But I think it's one of those things that everyone knows that's the direction, and gives that question. I think it's that next level, though, that's important, is what does that actually mean? What are they doing to achieve that? And I think that's where we want to get to now, but also the who. So we're using Klaxoon here with the board. I'm hoping you've got Klaxoon open okay there, Stoller?
I thought I had, but I need to, maybe it's in a different window or something. I'm checking.
Okay, I'll let you have a look through there as we talk through this. I'm going to make it a little bit larger so people can see there. Just in the interest of time, I started with some of these of looking at who our stakeholders are, who we're looking at in terms of the explorers. So I'm using a Klaxoon template that talks about the core people, the direct influences, and the indirect from there. And obviously, at our core, we are the Viva Explorers, a group of MVPs and Microsoft employees, purely because we can get the NDA and we can discuss without worry about that, without too much worry on there. I think we have close to that core is the wider Microsoft. So we're generally looking at those community orientated Microsoft employees as explorers, but we've got others in Microsoft that we spoke to. We spoke to Jeff Teeper and Adam Harmetz. We consider those very close to that. People like Natasha Chomsky and, oh, my brain's gone, but the other members of the VCCP that run the Viva Customer Connections program there that we're very close with. We see those very much influencing Viva, and we want to have that ability to kind of share the information we get from them that we can, and also to share back to them what we learn and what we hear from others. We have the Friends of Viva Explorers, which is a combination of those who aren't MVPs and aren't on the NDAs, and we've already seen Femke Cornelissen recently come from being a friend. Oh, I forgot to lock this. From being a friend to being a Viva Explorer. So these are people connected there, but because they're not an NDA, we kind of put a slight separation there. Sadly, it's one of those things we'd like to branch out more for those and build a bit of connection. on the wider things, and I think our kind of core market that we're looking at are people like the Microsoft community, so those who are interested in Microsoft. And when we go to conferences, we share with those who are interested in that. We do videos like this. So many of you listening, I would consider part of that Microsoft community. And then the broader aspect to that of those interested in Viva, they're what we really want to be getting to. People who kind of heard a bit about Viva, want to learn a bit more, why would you use it? What is it actually on there? And closely connected, those who maybe are users of Viva. I talked about being the Viva transformer, of connecting with those who have already got it, but maybe aren't understanding fully what it's for and where it fits there. Taking on a little bit wider, we got the conference attendees who generally be part of what we consider the Microsoft community, but they may have been dragged along by their boss or something like that. So we'll put them as slightly different. The kind of wider one, and really where we're looking to target and move a little bit further, is those who we think would benefit from some of the elements of Viva if they knew a bit more why. So looking at, and I think for us also understanding their challenges. So people in comms, I think there's a big thing around Viva connections and the benefits they could get there. Obviously, HR professionals across a lot of Viva, especially Viva Insights, the information, Viva Learning on there. We got topics with the knowledge owners, Viva Goals with the strategy owners. I'm sure there's more we could put in there. But to me, these stakeholders are those that we need to try and find ways to get out to and get them to understand what is possible and why they should care about this. Any thoughts on that, Stoller? Is there any other areas that we should think of as stakeholders or people we'll be involved with?
No, I agree.
Well, that was nice and easy on that one. So I think this is a nice one for us to kind of pick up there on that wider view. So let's crack on with number 3 of really starting to take. So we've got that vision. Now we want to get through to what are your objectives. And when it comes to OKRs, generally we should be looking at 3 to 5 ideas. So usually when I run this as a workshop, we kind of go quiet for 5 minutes and just allow people, this, we can add post-it notes to this. So if I add on the screen here, I can add the idea of, let's see, we should be looking at conference sessions maybe as something that we should be looking at doing, and just throwing that up onto there and putting some post-it notes. So a bit like you would do with on a post-it notes, putting on a whiteboard when you're in person. This is a lovely way of doing the same thing there. So maybe shall I start throwing some ideas and you throw some in, and I'll talk through ones and then you can add some, Stoller?
Yes, and I also believe you have done some brainstorming on this already, so I can try to add those as well.
Yeah, I've got some notes of...
Yep. So I will try to add that, and you can add your stuff, and then we'll take it from there.
Because I think for me, conferences are one of the big ones of getting out to people, sharing that knowledge. Probably alongside that, we've got some user groups. It's going and talking to people, sharing that information of what we've learned, and trying to take people along that journey as well of seeing a little bit more on that. I think specifically in conference sessions, some of the ideas I had was also around non-Microsoft related conferences. So how we can, get to those wider stakeholders I talked about a minute ago, things like the CIPD conference. And I know that Leslie's talked about this quite a lot, trying to get into some of those comms ones, HR, things like CIPD events, how we could really share beyond the bubble. It's very easy in the social media world to get stuck in our own bubble on there. How can we get things outside from that as well? I think the other is we want to get our website focus. So we got the website where we can share what we're going. It gives us a central hub to kind of say, here's the events we're going to, here's the blog posts we got, here's the videos like this that we've done, that gives that landing page for people to understand what we've got going on. Oh, so you're grabbing some of the different ones we've got there, which is great. I think, podcasts is another one. So the one of the things we've talked about internally, and I think we're happy to share this. I'll let the other Viva Explorers shout at me afterwards. But we talked about, should we have a Viva Explorers podcast? Should we have a more regular cadence of creating digital content ourselves versus ones that we create anyway, and actually we act as an aggregator. And I think certainly at the moment we focus more on aggregating the content that each of us is creating and providing a way to get to that. I don't think we've always done the best job, and could do some improvements there as well. So creating that digital content. Another area I think is about building the community. So I think community is a massive area. I know we have the Microsoft, it's called the MTC, Microsoft Technology Center, the Technology Community. So we've got the MTC there, not UL. If you're listening to this, I think we've got that element of how do we go out and answer questions people we have, help see what, allow people to provide that feedback. We don't just want to be broadcasting out all the time. We also want to be able to listen as well to what others have and help directly. When it comes to conferences, especially in person, you've got that opportunity to chat to people, which is why those in-person ones are particularly helpful, bringing that together as well. But I think it's how else can we do that? I'm very much a big believer in the asynchronous work side. So being able to have people ask questions and they're answered when you can. We've got Answers in Viva, a lovely tool for doing that, even if more for internal to organizations. But we should be looking at opportunity to do that, whether it's maybe it's LinkedIn communities. We should talk about Twitter. Maybe just bundle that under social media communities that we should be looking to engage with. And then the final one I had on my thoughts, I don't know if you got to the VCCP stuff there. No, I think there's the Microsoft engagement. So we also want to be aware of what Microsoft's thinking, helping to feedback on that thinking that they have. And I think the key area we see at the moment is within the VCCP. And I know it's the Viva Customer Connections Program. Careful and make sure I'm not hitting any NDA topics, but I know that is available to people who are a Viva customer, can speak to Microsoft about being added to that, or speak to one of us if you think that's something that would be worthwhile. And that gives us access to some of the things that are upcoming, some of the ideas that Microsoft are having, but also for us to feedback and say, I'm going to say it and not worry. I think there were some interesting sessions on that later last year as some of the new Viva services came out, that there was just too much coming out and people didn't understand that. And I think I can hear the argument for that, absolutely, that people are just seeing another Viva and another Viva, another Viva. And I think for me, that is one of our opportunities to go out there and try and educate people in those 4 pillars of connection, insight, growth, and purpose, and how actually the important thing is those, not the different services. We shouldn't be talking about technology. We should be talking about what you're trying to solve, and then look at what the technical aspects and the processes and that adoption can help with people there. But it was a good bit of feedback, I think, for Microsoft on there, and that's where some of those VCCP elements can come through. Sorry, any other thoughts?
No, I think I do think we have a good start here now. We have done a brainstorm before, half a year ago, I think. So I just included everything we had from that session. I think the next thing we should do is like a cluster, as you said, the similar topics in these different clusters, and then start to see if there are an OKR in there, a goal,
and I think if we focus on that objective first, and then think about how we measure success in that, because I think, and I like this here, we've got a mixture of objectives, things we'd like, almost initiatives, things we'd like to do. We've got things we could measure on there, like friends and onboarded. So the point of this bit is to very much be a brainstorm and then bring those together. So I think we've got the conferences, and I think we're thinking more on those conferences about attending. I think community events runs a very good one. So there's one is attending events, but then there's also actually us coming in and running events. Like we had the Viva Explorers Day in Manchester. We had the very closely related Cloudway event recently with many Viva Explorers at. We've got the Viva track at Comsverse coming up in Belgium, and I think Netherlands as well. There's some Viva Explorer days coming. So it's not just attending events, but also influencing the core events itself. I think we could probably, if we move feedback, well, actually, I'll move up to the top here. Kind of content-wise, I think we can bring those together, and then let's bring community over there, Microsoft engagement. I think we're looking at the different sort of communities, non-Microsoft sessions. I think we're thinking about that as conferences almost, aren't we? Increase awareness. So to me, I think the increased awareness of Viva, I'm going to change the color because I think that is one of our key objectives that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think that's the a very overarching goal is to do that, increase awareness of Viva. And the reason for that is, and I think also that's a core at Viva Explorers, is that we understand that it's organizations and people can live happily unaware of Viva and do everything as they always have and succeed with that. But what if you could do so much more with what you already got through Viva? I think that's part of why we want to do this.
So understanding what people have within their existing licenses, what the value would be of investing in kind of either an individual thing like Viva Topics or investing in the full Viva Suite license, or maybe I'm hearing there's some lovely deals going around with Microsoft on on Viva at the moment. So maybe you've got that Viva Suite and you've only turned on one thing and you're wondering, should we invest more in turning on some of the other things as well?
Yeah, and I think the ones you have in green here, increase awareness of Viva, build a community around Viva, but also I think the Microsoft feedback is important. So maybe that is also an objective, so that we help Microsoft identify who they can get feedback from, because since everyone in the core group of Viva Explorers are MVPs, conference speakers, we talk to customers, we get a lot of feedback, which then we can relay back to Microsoft, and also we probably have some of our own agendas or what we want to get out of the Viva products, such as Insights. It's Viva Insights is a fantastic product, but if you just do this little thing, then it will be like legendary. It's not just fantastic anymore. So
I think it's a really interesting point, and I think maybe this is something we as explorers need to consider, is how we separate some of those things. So there's our feedback, which would be from our experience, from people who've spoken to us, or things that we're doing actively. I almost feel that we should look at that, things that people have said to us, find a different way to measure that to a certain degree. That I know there are some who think MVPs are just a load of opinionated people who think what they care about is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Which, I was about to say is absolutely true. Ish, in case anyone's listening. But I think it's also important that we say that where things have come from direct need. So being able to say this is that particular use cases. So maybe it's use cases identified.
Use cases and business cases then. So two different categories
ones.
on those.
I like those. I think that's quite important, because I think the use cases are making use of Viva in a certain way, which may articulate how to use it, and then there's the specific use case that maybe it won't work in this scenario. And I love some of those feedback sessions you get from Microsoft, and they kind of go, oh yes, yeah, that's interesting, and suddenly they come back and have done it very quickly, and you feel very proud and happy from that. So I think there's those two different elements. So I think we've got some big areas. So we've got increased awareness. I think we've got some kind of sub areas. Maybe we can put in another color.
So everything around increased awareness is conferencing, it's social media, user groups, all that I think are related to increase awareness as an objective.
Yeah. Just pausing on social media. Conferences run/influenced.
Yeah, but we already have that, don't we, as a post-it note, or maybe not?
So I think we've got two. I think we've got two different ones. So we've got we've got conferences that we attend and speak at and share, and I think we've got different goals of looking at maybe getting wider non-Microsoft ones. And again, this is interesting with OKRs. We don't need to have just that top level. I think that's where we're focusing today, but we may find that further ones come through, because then we've got the conferences run or influenced. And by influence, I mean like with Comsverse, where we're running a track rather than running a full community day event. So maybe we add that as a
so what are the
tracks.
so the green ones are objectives, the blue ones are those key results, or?
No, I think at the moment where my head's going is the green ones are the top level objectives, and then underneath that we've got some sub objectives.
Okay.
So there's conference attendance, and the key result would be number of conferences attended of the different types on there.
Okay.
I'm kind of brainstorming and moving things around before we go into the more specific elements.
Yep.
I think I'm going to move these over because I think these are more about the community. So in terms of bringing friends on board, explorers on board, I think we've got two different elements around the community. We've got the Viva Explorers community, in terms of who we know, who we're speaking to, as you say, friends, that we've got those avatars from people who are part of the explorers and measured there. And then there's the wider community. And this is why I was wondering about social media. That got me thinking a little bit more, is how we get out into those communities. And it's not just increasing awareness, but it's almost that two-way. Whereas I feel the increased awareness is a bit more of a one-way push that we're looking, versus the two-way engagement that we're talking about here. So that would be like in the tech community answering questions. Again, same with social media answering questions.
Yeah.
And that's where maybe there increased awareness. There's social media posts. But I think we've got two different areas of social media. One is posting and sharing, or social media sharing, maybe.
Yeah, I think at least from a Viva Explorers perspective, there's one thing that we are posting as Viva Explorers, but it's equally important that we amplify what the Viva Explorers are posting as individuals, making sure that everything, we have 60, 70 people part of the Viva Explorers. We should then funnel that that content through so it's easy to find it. So if you think yeah, we are
okay.
We have too many ideas here now. We need to be more concrete. But what I'm saying is that we should amplify the Viva Explorers, right? So it's easy to find everything we post about Viva. Was my meaning.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. So we'll have to find a way of making that point. I forgot there was a limit on the free one.
Yeah,
and
but
that's why you should pay for your license, kids.
Yeah, that's why you should pay for your license.
I can scribble some notes as we go along.
No, but let's try to define these now as OKRs, and because we will never get finished with this today, regardless. So let's see what we can actually define here now, based on what we have. I think we do have some good starter OKRs in here, and that can always be tuned, right? And that's the point of OKRs. It is when you start with it, it's like a 2-year journey, and before we really are succeeding with this. So we shouldn't expect to succeed with it out of the gate, but you need to start and tune and review, maybe on a shorter cadence, and do it very often in the beginning. And then as you get more familiar with it, the organization gets more familiar with it, then you can do it quarterly, maybe half yearly, or maybe yearly even.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. If we take those ones, you happy with the phrasing around those three as that kind of core objectives to those? Would we want to expand on that in terms of objective?
No, I think this is a good start.
Yeah.
Instead of
I think this is interesting.
Could you just move the post-it notes or over there, or what's the intention here?
So usually I copy these rather than move them because this structure's there. But I think you're right. So what I'm just going to do, because we haven't got, because we can't add any more, I'm just going to do a quick screenshot of that. At least I would if my screen behaved. Lovely bit of technology. And sorry for those listening if this sounded a little dull, but we wanted to really be honest with this and share it as it is. So
Yeah, no,
got
we
screenshot of
didn't plan
those.
this out, so this is a working session.
Yeah, intentionally. Right. So yeah, I think you're right. Let's move those across. And I'll delete the text in a minute. So I'm really happy with that one. I'm kind of happy with that one. And I'm hoping we might come back to the objectives once we've put some key results
Yes, then we can go back
in
and
there.
tune it and see if it
Yeah.
makes sense, and also
And
if it's ambitious enough, right? If it's not ambitious enough, then we need to like increase the stakes.
I think that building a community around Viva is pretty ambitious, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So if we look at some of
Oops.
these were measures. So you move things around.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So I think we could take some of these of conference sessions run on there. Conference sessions.
Yeah, but you also had the sub objectives. Maybe we should get in there as well. The blue ones.
Yeah, so generally you want to have key results to your top level objectives and then have sub objectives with key results there. I'm thinking that we try and define those top level objectives for now and then come back to those second level at a later point.
Okay.
But then, so maybe almost it's the number of conference sessions run, but then the more specific one is how many non-Microsoft ones, how many user groups that it's at a level of detail. We might find that it's your point earlier about what some people might want to focus on user groups. Some people might want to focus on the non-Microsoft, that we almost have that as the lower level objective. So I think we could almost just take that one of conference sessions done.
That's a key result, right?
Yeah. Against those increasing awareness is we can very easily take that as a key result.
Yeah.
And we'll come back in a minute to how we track that. I'm sure it's going to end up being Excel, damn it. Do we take these as top level key results? So let me just zoom in so people can see community events run and community tracks run.
Yeah. Maybe some of these are also key initiatives, because the key results is that we want to do conference session, non-Microsoft conference sessions, and so on, community events, and that. So that's definitely key results.
But I would have thought that each community event is an initiative.
Right, because that's a specific project, right? Let's for instance, ComSource could be an initiative.
Yes. Yeah. Or the other one could be like Zoe's just created a standard slide pack, and we could create some packs to help people run the events more easily.
I think that's an initiative, that would be an initiative, right?
Yeah. That's what I mean. That those could be initiatives, but they help feed the number of events by making it easier to run events. We're going to see more events. The success, certainly at the top level, is around the number of events run. We may see lower level OKRs of improve. We could have an objective which is improve the ease of creating community events, and that would feed into that increase awareness.
Maybe we have as you said, we create a template for it, or that could be an initiative or something like that.
And I think that's a really interesting point. blow my own trumpet here, but a really interesting one, I think, again, going back to that KPIs. With KPIs, you may cascade that same KPI down across your organization. So for a consultancy, it could be utilization of staff. And you could say, right, we've got the top level utilization, and then this department, we want you to get 80%, and this team, you want to have 80%. You wouldn't have that same OKR saying, right, you need to achieve that utilization. What you'd have is an objective on how you're going to achieve that, to improve that utilization. So there we'd have the top level OKRs, community events run, but then a sub one could be to improve the ease of which community events can be run. Now, if you succeed in that, that should mean that more events could run. It's not the only thing. Other things will lead into that. But you shouldn't just say, let's run more events of this and then more events of this type. So it just is just a simple roll up from there. There should be how you're going to do those things that feed up as well.
Mm.
Now, I'll be honest. I think you and I differ slightly in our views on this, because I know you're very much the advocates of we create content and aggregate it on the Viva Explorers, which I do agree with. I personally think we should be writing some Viva Explorer specific content as well that comes across there, or creating videos and things with the Viva Explorer brand.
I think we definitely should do both, right? I don't think the one excludes the other. But then we can define then as a group, like what would be important for us, right? If you're going to write a Viva post, should you post it as yourself or part of the Viva Explorers? And then if we as a group then have a key objective on that, or a goal on that, or a key initiative, then okay, if I'm doing it over here, I'm not actually helping the group as we plan to do it as a group. But that's something you should put in there. But then we can, when we go through and work through this with the Viva Explorers over time, we can then figure out like how we want it to look like, right? So I don't think it's up to us to decide on that, but we definitely should put both of them up as part of the process.
I'm going to slightly steal this one and maybe take these as content created and content aggregated as two measures that we bring across and look at. At least I would, if I could grab that without going off the screen. Oh, is it going? And I think another good point for people is, these are key results. All of these help that frame that top level from there.
But and then when we're starting to talk about this and we're starting to look at what we have, how many objectives and how many key results should we have?
So I was just about to say exactly the same thing. So I know that Ally and now Viva Goals talks about having 3 to 5 OKRs at each level. So your top level should only have 3 to 5. Each department would have 3 to 5. You as an individual should have 3 to 5 at any one period. So generally quarters, but it's up to you to kind of define that period that should take place. I don't know if I've seen recommendations around the number of key results. I would say up to 5 is where my gut feel says.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's like 3 to 5 on key results as well. But I think it's very important now that we like put them in buckets at least. Yeah, but at this stage, we should then just put everything in a bucket, and then we start like analyzing and removing and maybe combining.
And we might do a next level.
Next level,
objectives.
Definitely.
Yeah, so move them down to there.
But at this stage, I think we just should put them in buckets, and maybe that's where we end for today.
Yeah. So I think we leave podcast recording now, because I think that's more specific. I kind of feel website views. Now, I don't know what your view on this is. I'm being slightly lazy here, because there are one of the things with key results is to think about what you can measure. And so things that are easy to measure, it's kind of worth thinking about that, because if you've got something that's really impossible to measure that may be important, yes, you can invest some time, but taking some of the easy things that can help influence that, like website views, we've got Google Analytics and Microsoft Clarity on the site, so we can get those numbers out pretty easily. That we should include that.
Yeah, and I think this is where, if you have an existing organization, you probably are doing these things already. So then look at like what can you do, and what are you measuring today, and how would that translate into objectives and key results?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
because people are, organizations are measuring stuff like this already, but they're
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
doing it as a disconnected process. It's just something we do, but indirectly, it's because to increase awareness, but it's like not defined in such a clear way, maybe in an organization today. So I think that's where OKRs is a very good tool in order to become more conscious about why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. So I just keeping an eye on the time, and we're well over what I was hoping to get on. So try and move on a little bit quicker. I think in terms of building a community, I think we've got two simple ones of number of explorers onboarded and number of Viva Explorer friends onboarded that we can bring across.
Yep, and
One
avatars too. I think for those we onboard, make sure we create avatars for them so they identify who they are.
I'm going to bring
But
it
that's for the
across. I'm
explorers.
Yeah, I'm mixed slightly on that one at the top level. Is the only thing I think it's really important. Maybe for me, this is one we bring across, and then we might later say, actually, no, this will be a kind of sub-objective
But the avatars
within
probably
there.
is a sub objective to the explorers
Yeah,
onboarded.
yeah. I'll move that slightly down, or maybe put it to the right as a. It doesn't feel like a top level measure we shout. I do think it's an important one. I definitely agree on that.
Yep.
Whether it's a top level one,
Or
I'm
maybe
more
it's a key
mixed on.
initiative even, not a result,
Yeah, I
because
think it's
it's an
initiative
actual
behind it.
thing we do.
I think it's a measure because it shows that extra engagement we've got from the explorers to say, yes, here's my role, here's where I stand out, and gives people a bit of focus on there. So
Mm.
yeah, I think we talk about that a lot. So I'm torn with the wider community, mostly because it's how to measure it effectively is my concern there. So I think maybe this is something that becomes individual ones of number of posts we're doing, and maybe we could identify key communities that we engage with, and then we as individuals track number of posts on there. But I guess with like
That still
MTC, we
can
could
get
easily
bubbled up.
measure.
Yeah, it still can get
Yeah,
bubbled up here. It depends on how you measure it, and as we said, not everything can be measured automatically. So I think that's it's definitely something we should have in here in order to measure impact. And but how we measure it, we may fail spectacularly. Because
yeah.
it's hard and so many sources. But it definitely should be in there, and then we see what's the effective way of measuring it.
I think a follow up. I don't think we should get into it now because I don't think we have time, sadly. But would be to identify which communities, and almost for each community, there's going to be different ways to measure. We may be able to, I think we could, like the Microsoft Tech community, we can identify a number of posts done by an individual.
Yep.
I don't know if you can get it for other people in particular areas, but certainly we could see that influence on
Yeah, but then
those,
part
which
of
might
it is
help.
reporting that each individual report that, and then we understand why
Yeah.
we're doing it, because we don't want to do this, and that, and it leads to this objective.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you're right to your point there. Yes, not everything is measurable, but is automated. But the more you can automate, the more likely it is to continue being done. Especially for something like the Viva Explorers, where it's a side hustle. Well, it's not even a hustle. We are making no money from this. In fact, the complete opposite. I'd like to say. Yeah, it's a side activity. It's a passion rather than something we're doing as a day job. So I know from these that numbers will go up and down. We'll suddenly have a bit of time and people will invest a lot of time in it, and then things will get busy, especially with conference season or end of year for the day job. So
Yeah,
we
but
will see a lot of up and
this
down in this, and
will
that's
be
fine.
important then, because
Mm,
if you're going to do something, right? Because you don't have much time, what should you do that brings the most
prioritize.
impact?
Yeah, yeah,
Because of like, should I write a blog post over there? Should I post a video over there? What should I do that brings the most impact for the group?
shall I
So
shall I
it gets
buy a new
easier
domain
to
name?
identify that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think to me that covers the community. Is there any more? Let's just jump back to there. Is there any more
I think you
measures
can include
around community?
MTC in the community, if I
Sorry,
understood it
say again.
correct. Include MTC.
So you
That's a very
think that the
specific
measure of
community.
posts done within the MTC? Yep.
Yeah, for instance, or at least we have someone there.
Yeah.
Don't have to be there, all of us, but that we are there. Presence.
I'm just thinking in terms of I've forgotten what they're called in the MTC, but there's particular areas. Do you see who the top people in those areas are, or is it just overall?
I don't remember. I do think you
Because that,
see that. Think you see the 3 or 4 top people there.
yeah, because maybe that's another one we could look at is being the top people replying. Having, as you say, having that presence and being the key influencers in that area in terms of answering questions for people.
Yep. And then if there are more communities coming online around Viva, then we can like say, hey, is this an important community for us? And then we can
Absolutely.
evaluate that, right? Instead of like jumping on all the communities and
Yeah.
then
Is
spending too much
prioritize which
energy.
ones.
Yes, it's a
Yeah.
prioritization that will be easier when we have this more clear view. But we
Yeah.
are 70 people at the same time, so it is easy to do something about a lot of the newer communities as well. So, but I think
But
it's
I think your
easier than
point there
to have
of
this.
there's a community is a community. Let's not just kind of hold all those and say, here's a list of communities. We've got to focus on what the ones are, or assign focus to different areas, or maybe not assign, but people agree to take on focus on different areas with that. Microsoft engagement. So I think there we can take the VCCP sessions attended by explorers.
Yeah, probably a difference between attending and actually presenting, because a lot of us present at them as well.
Yes, to me, that's a conference or user group session. That it more fits that increasing Viva awareness. Now, obviously, people on VCP know there's Viva, but not necessarily what you can do with
Okay.
it. It's more about that contribution and feeding back to Microsoft. To me, is the VCC. So, should we focus on the non-MVP sessions where we're kind of providing feedback on things versus
Yeah,
the
so I
session
think there's a
presenting?
difference between presenting and attending
Yeah, yeah,
at VCCP, the Viva Customer Connection Program. Because when we attend, those are typically sessions where we can give feedback to the product group. But when we present, we are still helping the program.
yeah.
But it's also helping to drive awareness, but it's more about helping the program and the program members.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think we can take that feedback one. We're looking at conferences like the MVP Summit, Airlift, where we again have that access that we can talk to people on this. I've realized the one downside of recording this is us both nerving and trying to remember what we can talk about, what we can't. So I realize we're kind of stuttering slightly here. That's part of the reason, I think.
Yeah. No, I don't think we have said too much yet.
No. I'm really interested. I really liked what you talked about, use case identified and business cases identified. I'm struggling to think of a measure on how we actually articulate that.
I think we just put it in there and then we can evolve it. Because I think it's important that we think in those terms, and then the way we can measure it is actually have an idea bank, and then take note of it when we share it with Microsoft, or how we have shared it. That's an option, just a suggestion or thinking. But yeah, let's keep them in there, but let's see how it can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. If anyone has ideas, especially Viva Explorers, on how we can measure that, because I don't kind of feel this would be the sort of thing that we do with
It's maybe part of the feedback
tracking a
roundtable as well,
list.
right? Maybe it's very
Yeah.
difficult to track, and it's I think that's okay still though. But yeah, we should definitely have it in there.
And maybe something we can speak with Microsoft about. Is there a way that we could track these with you? And obviously we have the what do they call them? The not the user stories, customer stories from Microsoft. That's more about kind of successes with Viva and with their other products on there. So I think there's a certain element within that maybe we could say let's as explorers try and influence those as part of our where we are partners and bring to that. But I think it's more particular use cases. More, I think the focus is where there is a gap where someone wants to do something and either Viva can do it, but it doesn't quite fit what they want, or there needs to be a slight change to things to be able to influence that and to open up a new market. I think that's where we're looking at things there.
Yep.
But yeah, I think definitely a goal for that one, but not necessarily a key result identified. That's something we need to think about a bit.
Yeah, it could also be a key initiative though. But yeah, depends on how we massage it.
Generally, you'd have an initiative would feed into a key result, in my view. It's an interesting argument, maybe for another time. Could it feed directly into an objective, or should it feed into a key result?
Maybe a key result, or a sub objective.
Yeah. Yeah, needs a little bit more thought. And I think this is a good example of it's always lovely. We touch on MVPs being opinionated. We generally think all these things can be solved. With a lot of these workshops, there's always going to be things that don't fit quite so well, and you need to think about a little bit more. It shouldn't get too distracted on them. You should kind of articulate it, say, right, let's set up an initiative to think about this,
Yes.
or something to dig deeper into and pick up later.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a process is a good process, if you understand what I mean. If you don't have a process on it, you won't move forward. If you have a process on it, at least you're moving forward.
Yeah. So I think we've got these as our top level objectives. Now we've put some key results. Any change we'd make to those?
I think this is a good start. We created some buckets, I would say. This is just a brainstorming, and we've added. I think it's clearer now than when we started.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a good starting point, but definitely needs more work.
Yeah, and I think this now fits what. Sorry, I think the thing to wrap up is I always like to do in workshops. What are the next steps? Next steps for us are now to share this with the rest of the Viva Explorers, get some internal feedback. Do these work? I think we've got a bit more work to define how we measure these. If this was in Viva goals, how are we going to track the sessions done? Are we going to have a spreadsheet? Is there going to be a Microsoft list that we can use to store these in? How do we track
double up through Power BI,
things?
right?
Yeah. So this is where we'd start to dig into. We can track sessions done, but how do we make sure that people actually do track the sessions that have taken place? It becomes this adoption and change. We can say, right, everyone track your sessions. And obviously everyone will listen, and we'll do that in the same way that all of us MVPs don't leave the contributions until the last minute. Oh, contributions.
Yes.
Maybe that feeds as a metric.
I have that on my to-do list, so I still have some
Yeah,
time.
me too. Maybe that fits in awareness of Viva or feedback to Microsoft or community. It
I
feels
think
like that's an important
contributions
measure.
are a very generic term. So I think we are actually more specific here. We have conferences, we have blog posts, we have all that.
Are you
So
saying we shouldn't treat that as a measure, or
no, at least, or
maybe
it would be a key result or even a sub-objective.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's a key result, but I'm just not sure what it fits
Because
into.
contribution could be a social media post, it could be a web,
Yeah,
a blog post, it could be a conference talk, it could be a podcast guesting.
could be some
It
GitHub,
could,
building some code to make
so
things
it could be
easier.
so much. So we need to be more specific. I don't think it's just measuring contributions, but maybe if it's on
Does it
a
not?
key result or a sub-objective.
I'm going to bring it over. Where have my ideas gone? Oh, they've moved again.
Oh, sorry, it's probably me.
Wait, somewhere like that. There we go. I'm going to steal one of the other ones because I think it's an important one. I'm going to steal it in here. I have got a screenshot of the other bits, but MVP contributions in Viva. I think this is again one of those key results that's relatively easy for people to measure on there. So it feels a good measure to do. But as you say, it's not necessarily focused on our core objectives, or it doesn't align directly with those. So I'm going to put it down the bottom here. Something to come back
But
to.
I think it's
time.
if it's on, I think it belongs to the increased awareness of Viva objective.
Yeah.
Right, because that's what we do when you do a contribution. It's it is talking about Viva somewhere.
But then we could have the product group ones are also contributions, so that could then fit into the
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah, that's true. That's
or
true.
It could be posting into the community and answering questions.
So maybe that's why it's just too broad, right? Maybe actually it should be at the top, which is the reason for why we're here in the first place.
Yeah. I think it's a lazy measurement rather than necessarily aligning. So maybe we just don't include it at all.
We break it down into increase awareness of Viva, building a community, and feedback to Microsoft. That's all. Those are contributions, really.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a practical one.
No. I'll put it there and we can see what others think around that as well.
Sure.
But I think we've got some good, I think this has shown how, there's something we're talking about doing. How does that fit to our objectives? It kind of shows how we pick up new things and why this is important as well. Lovely. Well, I think that's probably about time to wrap up and get back to the day job.
Absolutely. I think this was a good start. I think for me, it's clearer now than when we started.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting process, but this working with OKRs is a long process.
Absolutely.
So it's a long game and not a short win.
And I was talking about this, a lot of people saying why aren't there case studies around Viva goals? Because you've got at least 4 quarters before you're really seeing any benefit. And I think you talked about 2 years. So you're really talking about 8 quarters before you're truly seeing that benefit. And Viva Goals hasn't been around that long. I know there was Ally, but Viva Goals isn't quite the same product. So as people get embedded with it and take that POC, take it wider, we'll start seeing more coming out about it. And that's why we want to carry on sharing with people.
Yeah, and I think success is when everyone is thinking, how does my activity relate to our OKRs?
Yeah.
Then we have succeeded.
Yeah.
At least with those 96%. It won't be all of us, but 96.
Yeah, we'll just put those troublemakers in a bucket and just leave them to one side. Yeah, that'll be fine. I was going to name people there, and I thought I'll only get in trouble, so I won't say that.
No. Yeah.
It's probably us two, to be honest.
Probably, yeah. Those opinionated, but the problem is that all of
Exactly.
us are opinionated, so
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
we won't be representable
Higher
then.
percentage, yeah, of the MVPs. Thank you for everyone who's joined us through this, and thank you to those who've added some comments. Please do, if you find this later, put some comments. Let us know what you've liked about this. Would you like to see us do more things like this, of actively going through this and sharing that process? You know, we could take this deeper into how we get those key results out. We could take this deeper into that next level objectives. Let us know. We want to build that community around Viva. We've now got some goals around it, so we want to see what we can do there and hear back from you as there. But thank you very much from me.
Thank you very much from me, and hopefully we got some closer, both from our side, but also those watching.
Yeah, now we get to fight with the other Viva Explorers on them. But
Yeah.
thank you very much, and see you all soon.